Hello everyone, so back again to another video. Liam just commented on one of the videos and I thought I'd go and look at this. Apparently the video that I did before about Halo Infinite leaks has been confirmed fake. So we're on GameSpot here and we're just reading about it. So it goes over, a leak on Reddit claimed to have information on the campaign and multiplayer, but it was all a bunch of baloney. So I'm assuming that the website that I read this from before, I'm assuming somewhere they had a link to the Reddit thread on it. I wasn't paying that much attention. I was too busy thinking about how this would turn out. But yeah, apparently 343 has warned fans to stay vigilant following a post about the game on Reddit that's now been confirmed to be fake. The community manager reminded fans on Twitter that they should only trust details that come from Halo's official channels, even though, you know, Microsoft and 343 don't want the game being spoiled, so it's kind of in their interest that they say, "Oh, only trust us," you know. Since today's leak was admitted in being fake, please remember to only trust messaging from the official channels. We're close, just hang in there. See, that's the thing with this. That's one of those things where people are getting so desperate to see the newest Halo game and to understand just what this is because they've been so secretive over it that people are getting really desperate now. And you could look at this as a good or a bad thing. It's like, it's good that they seem outwardly to be taking the time. At the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, have they learned their lesson from prior things like marketing campaigns that they've done in the past? Hunt the Truth being an example where they did a really nice narrative setup for Hunt the Truth that looked or sounded really cool, and then it never played out. Although Halo's had a history of this kind of thing going on for years, so I'm really not surprised. But yeah, the leak was admitted to be fake. There's the post about it there. It says, Microsoft will formally show off and discuss Halo Infinite at the Xbox 2020 event in July. The company previously planned to reveal the game during E3 2020, but that event was cancelled, so Microsoft shifted its strategy. Bit of a tongue twister there. This Reddit leak claimed to have new details on the campaign and multiplayer, but now it's proven to be a bunch of baloney. And then it just says, Infinite is a launch title for the Series X, launching in 2019. Microsoft have confirmed that there will be multiple pre-release betas for Infinite. Whether or not the plans have shifted is unknown. In addition, the Series X Halo Infinite launch will be on regular Xbox One and PC. See, I'd just skip releasing it on Xbox One altogether, because it just means that the Xbox One version is going to be downgraded, or Infinite isn't going to be as good as it could be, unless they have, like, higher fidelity models for the Xbox One version. I mean the Xbox Series X version. I'm not sure how I take that. If it's cross-platform, then normally, or cross-generational, normally it's never amazing because they have to tweak the performance for the other console. A bit late for betas, isn't it, says John. No, not really. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to do the betas for, like, the multiplayer. I've never actually seen that article. I'm going to have to look at that at some point. But yeah, I've not heard of the betas up until now, but like with most other Halo games, I think for Reach and Halo 3 specifically, they put out betas for the multiplayer, and that was just to test the servers in terms of how much they could take, whether people actually liked the gameplay and whether it needed tweaking. It was mainly just for last-minute tweaks, and that was, or at least from a developer standpoint, you could think that it was a good idea because then they get a chance to tweak anything on a map or maps that might be taken a little bit differently than internal testing. Like, you'd imagine in internal testing, they can only do so much certain types of testing. You know, they don't account for people deliberately trying to do crazy stuff to get out of levels or other things, or or be able to try and exploit either spawns or things like that. So I imagine this or these series of betas will cover that, whether it be like for the different modes or whatever. Although then again, with the leak being confirmed as fake, we don't know what the modes are or anything. Any betas that come out close to release might be called a demo, says John. I suppose, I mean, I can't remember when the Halo 3 beta was. It's been that long ago. And the Reach one, I'm sure the Reach one wasn't amazingly close to launch. But that had a couple of maps on it. And I feel like that was specifically for tweaking either damage values or spawns for various weapons and other things. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind the whole thing of this being confirmed as fake. It's just everybody's grabbing at information at the moment because, they've clearly not released anything about this, and like mega fans are getting super upset and really want something to grab onto. And I think everybody is watching this with a close eye just because it's like, well, one, I've said before, Microsoft's Xbox consoles really do kind of live or die on whether they have a decent Halo game. Like the 360 thrived like crazy because it had 3 of 4 decent Halo games. Not all of them were first-person shooters, but they were decent. But the Xbox One, like, it didn't have any like really must-have Halo games. Like, originally, the Master Chief Collection was going to be the must-have for everybody. But the problem, though, is they messed up the launch. And of how buggy it was terrible. And they're still trying to fix it. And now they're kind of rushing the PC launch as well. Where they're just putting out these builds. And even after flighting them for a while, there are still issues in there. I mean, they're getting new issues that weren't in the original games as well. And I just feel like they're really just trying to throw this out the door and get it done. John says, trust me, Halo Follow will do something with this and it'll be cringe. Oh, I'm not even going to go there. But yeah, I can't wait to see more about Halo Infinite or anything, because it's like I said in the other video, I'm at that point with Halo where it's like this has to be the one thing to bring it back to its must-have status. Before Halo 5 happened, before 343 seemingly became, the absolute devil. Before that, they were handling all the other multimedia stuff. Like, if I remember rightly, they started handling stuff with Halo Wars, and then they moved on to Halo Legends, which wasn't too bad. So they were alright for a while. Halo 4 wasn't too bad. And then it's Halo 5 that's really messed it up, just because they did the whole deal of trying to sort of replace the Chief. They did that whole thing of calling him old and calling him outdated and just being like, oh, move over, old man, we'll put Locke in your place. And it didn't jive with a lot of people, just because you can't replace the Chief. I mean, I think there's a video out there of somebody saying they didn't understand the who the Chief was in context of Halo, and how the Xbox brand more or less kind of is kept alive by some really good Halo games, amongst some other standout titles. But yeah, you need a really good Halo game to keep the Xbox afloat, and the Xbox One hasn't had that, obviously, so hopefully the Series X will start off with Infinite being a good game. Honestly, when this presentation eventually comes out, I want it to be a good one, Like, these rumors that were going around, or these leaks that have been proven false now, it sounded good, I wanted the whole idea of like an open world Halo game to kind of be true, because it was neat to have that kind of different take on Halo, not just the same thing. I could kind of see it working as being like this open world Metro, Fallout, Skyrim style thing in terms of you can go wherever you want. You can do side missions. You can do the main missions. There's multiplayer that is like PvE, and you can have firefight in the. It sounded too good to be true, I'll admit now, thinking about it. But it was a neat, different take that I don't think we've properly ever had before. And I was honestly like, yeah, that might work. That might keep people interested. The one thing that has me worried now is they're going to take the Halo 5 route and not include stuff like co-op again. One of the killer things for Halo ages ago was on-couch co-op. And they got rid of that with 5, and the excuse was that basically 5 had higher graphical fidelity, and thus you just need to get 2 consoles, you know, and 2 copies of the game if you wanted to play it locally. And it's like, well, I don't want to. Can we just not have the standard couch co-op stuff? And apparently they've learned the error of their ways with that, so to speak, you know. John says, Halo 5 came out at the start of the whole forced diversity movement in the games industry. Not saying that's why Locke sucked, just his character development was so flat and dull. If they were going to replace the Chief with anyone, it should have been Buck, because he's a fan favourite. See, the thing is, they've built the Chief up to a point where I don't think anybody else can really replace him, and yeah, I don't see the big deal with putting Locke in the frame as kind of this next person to focus on, but it was that they didn't tell his backstory well enough. He was just kind of forcefully inserted into the entire situation as this kind of Oni shadow op that was always there in the background, you know. And it's weird how they wrote him, because he's had hardly any sort of contact with Chief until Halo 5. But apparently he's always been there watching and waiting. As a character, we don't see much of him until Nightfall. And then even in Nightfall, he's not exactly the most interesting character. If he had a better rogue character, you know, something like Buck, where he's got a little bit more meat to him, more details, instead of being this Oni shadow op, I wouldn't mind that. You know, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't mind if he's got more backstory. I know the Chief doesn't have much backstory in himself, but the problem is with the writing there, because Bungie deliberately didn't focus on Chief. They've said that they didn't focus on him because they wanted the player to be more immersed, so they didn't focus on why he was a sort of a giant walking metal suit of armor with no personality or anything. They made him say very few lines, and it was just to make the player feel as though they were Chief, as kind of that power trip. And you didn't need any sort of diving into his humanity or anything. Then again, coming in as a new developer, I can see why 343 did the whole deal of trying to flesh him out a little bit more, because it gives you a little bit more of an interesting story. But coming off the other Halo games, it was just so jarring. And then 5 just kind of got rid of everything that 4 did in terms of building Chief's new story up. And it just feels like they rushed it after the Spartan Ops story. Like, they didn't finish off Spartan Ops in Halo 4 properly, which they could have done. And instead, they kind of threw that in as the beginning of Halo 5. And then they came in with the whole idea that Bungie threw out originally, which was Cortana goes crazy. Because in the original developer commentary for Halo 1, you can hear Marty O'Donnell, Jason Jones, and Joe Staten say, like, yeah, we were gonna do this idea where Chief comes back to the control room after dealing with the Flood, and Cortana's absorbed that much Forerunner information that she's gone crazy and wants to take over the universe as kind of another antagonist. But then you can hear, I think it's either Marty or Jason say, like, we didn't want to do that because it seemed too stereotypical and too obvious, you know. It sounded really stupid when we thought about it a bit. And that stuck with me for ages when you see that, because it's like, okay, they clearly avoided doing something that they thought was a really stupid idea. That's good, because the story that we got was great. And then they decide, you know what, we'll tack this on to the end of Spartan Ops. There's Halo 5. You know, it's stupid. I want them to succeed. I want it to be a good story. But when the only character that has a good story in Osiris is Buck, well, then you've got problems, because we've not had that extra time with Locke to understand who he is deep down, how everybody else sees him and reacts to him. In Nightfall, it's just him surviving on a planet with a bunch of other Marines or ODSTs, I think, against a bunch of the worms that make up hunters and scarabs. That's it. That's all it is. It's just him trying to get off that planet after I think it's a Covenant bombing on one of the colonies. And that's it. That's all. All we get to know is that, you know, he basically is a survivor. He'll do anything to try and survive. That's about it. But yeah, let's go over chat here. Not saying Locke sucked, character development was so flat and dull. Oh no, I've read that. If Locke had character development, he'd be a great character. I like how the Chief became more of a character, especially after reading the book, says John, seeing how there was more of him than the strong and silent type. Spartan Echo says, I knew it. These leaks, I like the sound of them, but it sucks a little bit knowing the fake now. I'm hyped for the events that will come to show off this information. You know, the new stuff in July. I'm really hyped for that. I'm kind of approaching this entire franchise now with a little bit of caution. Honestly, I feel like they could have went the route with Reach and just had the player act as a silent no-name Spartan and left Chief lost in space, but that's just me. Hey, Heavy. Yeah, the thing is, ODST flushed out Buck and the ODSTs really well. Like the other ODST units that were in Buck's group there. Like Dur and everybody. I really liked how we got a game dedicated to them. And I feel like if they were gonna use Locke as the main driving force for the series going forward, they should have done that. They should have had another game that was a side game that could have focused on Locke and him doing some like Oni Shadow Ops stuff that was totally different. Still had the same mechanics 3 does with maybe the rest of Osiris, so we get to see how they come together properly outside of comics and stuff, because that's another thing that the Halo franchise is a problem with, and it's had it since Halo 2, which was there's all this additional material that you now need to either read or purchase just to understand little bits of the story that you didn't know about. Like, for instance, on Halo 2, where you have Halo 2 and Halo 3, the gap between, where you have the comics that bridge what happened on the key ship as Chief came back into Earth space, where you see him try and assassinate the Prophet and fail, and then ends up bailing out of the ship, and that's what you see at the beginning of Halo 3. You know, this stuff that we have to buy as different content, they could easily just put that in a title, or, you know, I'd love playing stuff like that, because like when it comes to Locke and the context of him, because it would build him up as a character. You'd get to know him, you'd get to interact with everybody else. It would make it less jarring than going into another game and just immediately being like, you playing as this new guy now? He's the new cool guy. We're going to have him be the face of the franchise for the next God knows how many games. No. Spartan Echo says, I'm looking forward for the July event and the PlayStation event in June. It's going to be interesting seeing what the PlayStation event holds. John says, I always thought 5 would have been a Reach type of game, choosing your own Spartan. Despite how it was handled, I have the concept of Spartan Ops, just random fire teams of Spartans handling missions. See, that's the thing, like, they even said they handled Spartan Ops wrong because they couldn't finish it. Like, I was saying this before in the other video originally about the leaks, how Spartan Ops was cool because you waited each week for the next CGI cutscene to advance the story, and all the missions that you did in there, they weren't exactly the best, but they give you extra content. It was cool. It was primarily the CGI you were waiting for to figure out what was going on with the story, but the way that it was done was pretty neat. And then they clearly didn't do the other seasons for Spartan Ops, and then instead, I think by their own admittance in extra media, I think they've said on different websites, that's how they ended up tying it to Halo 5, was they did the comics, and then they did Halo 5, and in the comics you find out that the Didact isn't dead at the end of Halo 4, and that he's gone to a planet that has multiple composers on it, I think, or something. But that's just an example of stuff we never get to find out unless you read the comics. You know, is Spartan Ops like Spec Ops in Modern Warfare? Spartan Ops was the additional content where each time, because I'm not familiar with Modern Warfare, Spec Ops, it was basically an additional campaign that you could download or that would get unlocked every week and would give you extra cutscenes and stuff, and you basically go and do different missions. I think it was like 4 or 5 missions as your Spartan fire team. John says, hell, Spartan Thorn from Spartan Ops was meant to be in Locke's team. Yeah, in Halo 5's art book, they show Spartan Thorn being part of Osiris, which would have tied things in nicely. You know. But yeah, going over these leaks again. These leaks were pretty cool. Like I said before, it was neat to kind of hear that they may have been approaching Halo in a completely different way. I'm just kind of sad now, because the guy that came up with those leaks, it sounded pretty nice. You know, like I said before, this was thrown my way from Siphon on Discord. But it was pretty cool to kind of get the idea that Halo was going to be a more open world game based on, you know, like a similar style to either Skyrim or Fallout. Something, you know, that would have main missions and side quests. It would have firefight for its multiplayer. There'd be stealth in it that would kind of harken back to ideas from ODST. It seemed like it was picking and choosing from all the most interesting elements of the franchise, and I genuinely was really happy for this morning. I was like, okay, if this is proven to be true, then I'm more interested, and this actually has me slightly more optimistic about where this is going. I'm really interested in seeing what they're going to do with this, because when you think about it, they've also said that this is going to be tied slightly to Halo 5, but a load of people have been saying like it's going to be either a soft retcon or whatever. I don't know. To be honest, I'd try and roll it back to basics. It's just one of those things where, like I said before, I want this to do well. I want this to be good. And if it's anything like the leaks, I'll be at least a little bit happy that they've done a different take on it. It's not exactly a risky take of sorts, but it's funny because a load of other people have made the point of Halo used to be the one that set the trends for the industry in terms of holding 2 weapons at one time, the way that the multiplayer was done, the way that the lobby system was done and the friends system for getting into multiplayer, the way that the game was structured, the weapons and stuff. A lot of that was then taken into other games, especially the stuff with like shield mechanics from Halo 2. They were all taken into other games because they were popular at the time, and then round about the time where COD was really hitting its peak, that's when you saw Halo slowly take from COD and do the opposite, and ever since, it's just not been as popular, or at least I don't think it has. Like, there was always this talk ages ago of, you know, like, what's better, Halo or COD? And I'm going back to, like, Halo 1 through 3. There was always this comparison between Halo and COD, and it was like, oh, well, if you play COD, you suck, and if you play Halo, you suck, you know, there was always that backwards and forwards, and I feel like it was better when they were less comparable, because they're decent games in their own right. They shouldn't have to be compared to each other because they each have their unique mechanics. But 4 and 5 is really where Halo started blurring the lines between both of them. And I'd prefer it if they stopped blurring the line and instead stepped back, looked at what they'd done and said, you know what? We don't always have to follow trends. I think that's more company higher ups that sort of do that, where they go, oh, it's trending, it must be popular, so we gotta do it, which has me terrified that they'll put Battle Royale in this thing, because I'm not a fan of Battle Royale. But I'm absolutely terrified that they'll do something like that with Infinite, Let's read chat again here. Spartan Echo says, yeah, what you said is somewhat the same, just Modern Warfare with lazy and didn't really make it important to the storyline. Oh, fair enough. Heavy says, I think the biggest part was thanks to the story being locked into multiplayer and only being 4 hours long. Let's see here. John says, I loved ODST, intro for the last mission when playing as the IMC. Wait, what? Oh, I don't know about Titanfall. John Palmer says, what did I miss? So there were leaks for Infinite this morning, or the other day, I can't remember. Siphon posted them across my desk on Discord, and they were saying it was going to be a more open world. Infinite was going to be a more open world game. It was going to have, Skyrim-style exploration in terms of being able to sort of branch out and do your own thing. It was going to be an open world, kind of it reminded me of ODST a little bit, where you'd go through different environments and you'd do main missions that were very linear, but then you'd have different quests that you could go off and do. It sounded kind of cool, and it cherry-picked from different parts of the franchise that people thought were popular, and sounded neat, and it's all turned out to be fake. ODST's last mission was pretty sick when you get a shift from the whole flashback to fighting in real time with your team. I liked how ODST was set up. Imagine being able to explore an entire Halo ring, says John. It'd be cool. Spartan Echo says, for me, both COD and Halo are good. We don't all have to fight over it. Exactly, right? But this is what I'm saying, when people compared them, there were things that were different about both games up until Halo 4. Well, mainly Halo Reach, Halo 4, Halo 5. I say Reach because they introduced all the different perks and loadouts and everything. And then with 4, they went one step further with kill streaks. And then with 5, they included all the advanced mobility that all games seemed to go with. Where they all have advanced mobility. You can slide, you can run on walls and stuff. Really weird, that kind of phase in games. I hope they kind of get rid of that a bit. I see what they were doing with putting that in, because they go through this whole procedure of saying, well, it's completely different. You've only seen these things in cutscenes now, and you actually get to do them. We've got advanced mobility, make you feel like a super soldier. It's like, yeah, that's fine and dandy, but it's cool showing them off in cutscenes. But I'd like more simplistic gameplay that I don't have to think about too much, and that I can just the general average player can enjoy. Because I feel like Halo, especially Halo 3, was at its peak because a lot of people could just open the package and play it. There was no massive amount of skill gap between players. It was, and I've said this multiple times, it was primarily about layouts in levels, learning the spawns for all the weapons, coordinating well with your teammates, and that was it. That was it for Halo 3. How to make a good game. Just good team coordination, knowing where all the weapon spawns are so you can get the good stuff, and the level layouts were great. But since 3, we've got a load of forged maps, which seem pretty lazy because Reach came with only a few maps, and then the rest were just build them yourself, so the devs didn't have to do it. 4 came with a couple of okay maps, but then, again, relying on stuff from Forge. Not so much. And then 5's multiplayer was kind of just, it might just be me, but, I'd prefer it if they started rolling back, made it simpler to apply to more people, because I feel like you have that high skill gap with all these like high mobility games, where you can run on walls, you can slide and everything. I feel like that is more suited to COD because COD was known for some of that before Halo started doing it. And then everybody started calling out Halo and being like, oh, it's just copying COD. I feel like if they'd have stepped away and instead kept going with what they had and just, I don't know, maybe add more perks, maybe add more armor abilities or something to kind of make it different so you didn't have to adopt the advanced mobility system, because I feel like Halo didn't need that, and it really kind of, it doesn't make it as readily accessible. Like, there's a higher skill tier for that sort of mobility in a game, whereas with the older games, there is a lower skill gap. It's always touted as that game where you could just, and as I think it was either one of the guys from one of the main Halo fan sites, or it was Bungie, said, we can just go to somebody's house, put an Xbox down, and people can just jump on and play immediately because it's that simple. I feel like they got a lot of sales and a lot of fans behind them because it was that simple. Everyone can just pick up and play because they know how to play instinctively. It's just a case of getting good and learning the things that I've been on about, compared to the higher skill play from COD with the advanced movement stuff. That's how I kind of tell the difference between both of them. That's just me, though. 5 was very esports themed. I'll get into that in a moment. Heavy says, preaching to the choir. Why no Halo VR, says John. I mean, you could easily do that with the cabinet game that they released. What was it, the 4-player, or was it 6-player cabinet FPS game that took place before Halo 1? They could have easily released that either on VR or released it on PC or Xbox One and just turned that into its own title. And I'm sure people would have been alright with that. But instead, they made it an arcade exclusive. It's a weird one, that. Spartan Echo says, I'd like to forget about Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare, though they did redeem themselves with the new Modern Warfare on campaign and multiplayer, not Spec Ops, though. So yeah, 5 was an esports theme with maps not just being made for the casual player base in mind. That's one thing that annoyed me about 5 is they talk too much about the esports side of it in all of the dev videos. They don't talk about getting the casual players. They obsess about the esports side of it because they want it to be popular again. Obviously, at this point, Halo wasn't as popular as it used to be. And they turn around and just go, yeah, we're going for the esports, man. We're going to have these pro teams are in helping us test. It's going to be fantastic. Smaller teams, 4v4, and it's going to be great for that kind of thing. And they constantly talk about pro stuff over and over and over. And I feel like that's where they lose a lot of the fan base immediately with 5 and its multiplayer, is because they go too much for that side and don't cater to just generic people that come home and just go, or from, like work or school, and just go, what, throw on the Xbox, pop in some Halo and go chill out with some mates for old time's sake. Instead it's like, if you're not down with the esports level play, or at least you don't have that sort of skill level, then don't bother, because you're just going to get wrecked each time. That's how I feel that Halo 5 went in terms of its multiplayer. Might just be me, though. Let's see here. John Palmer says, maybe as a compromise, one dedicated lobby for advanced mobility and the other one for simple classic. I mean, that would be an easy way of doing it. Change it up in the lobby system. Heavy says Fireteam Raven. Yeah, that was the arcade game. You can't just stick a game disc for your first time in an Xbox and just play the game, says John Palmer. You have to wait for the first 3 hours to install and then 2 hours installing updates. You get what I mean. Back on the 360 where we didn't have to wait like 5 hours for updates and stuff. Am I the only one who liked Infinite Warfare single player, says John. I've never played Infinite Warfare, so... Spartan Echo says, COD did take it all from Titanfall. The thing is, I hate the mechanics of, like, wall running and double jumping. See, the thing is, like, with Titanfall, even with Titanfall, I've said this before, Titanfall 1 didn't seem too bad because you knew the guys that had made COD were making it. So you go into it, and it's kind of simple in its own way. It's a little bit different from Halo, but you get used to it. I spent more time in the robots, though. And then Titanfall 2, not particularly fond of that multiplayer, primarily because they include the grappling hook and stuff, and you have people just going over everywhere at light speed because of that one thing alone. Like, one little thing can change all of the game. Let's see. Ultras says, how I see it is because the technology was getting more advanced and nothing in Halo was more advanced to the devs, so the natural progression was jump jets, sprint, faster. Yeah. I can see that. It's like, nothing in Halo's gameplay was advanced. You know, it didn't have the jump jets, the sprinting, everything else. Halo 2 was gonna have sprinting, but they cut it. And then it was in Reach and stuff. I feel like Reach is where they really kind of tweaked the gameplay with the armor stuff and everything, and it was kind of okay apart from armor lock. Everyone will know what I mean about armor lock there. But yeah, Reach was good for its multiplayer. I didn't play it as much as I played 3, but Reach was good. Some unrelated stuff there. It's pretty much what happened. They did add more casual-based stuff, but the damage had already been done. Halo didn't need all the advanced stuff. That's what I've been saying, Ultras. You know, like, if they took it back a little bit, then, you know. John Palmer says, what could be more advanced than playing an armored character that could survive a fall from space, but die while swimming in 2 inches of water? No, like, I wouldn't, at this point, I wouldn't want them to roll all the way back to how it handled in Halo 1. I'm happy with them handling Halo as long as, one, they don't cock up the story anymore, because that was just messed up with 5. And it's additional material that you needed to get to understand it. But yeah, I think Reach was an okay evolution, apart from armor lock. You know, if they included different things to the armor system, I can see people kind of enjoying another Reach-style game that was more open world, like ODST, like they described in the leaks. You know, that'd be kind of cool. I'd be down with that. Provided, you know, it was Chief exploring a ring, trying to figure out what's going on, assuming they're taking this after Halo 5 story, so antagonist Cortana has got to be in there somewhere. It's possible that at some point we'll see the Flood as well, because, you know, we've got the Flood coming back in, Halo Wars 2's DLC, where they had Flood on the Ark still, that the Brutes were dealing with, the Banished specifically. You know, there's potential for them to come back again. This could easily be a soft reset of the franchise in a completely different way, in terms of it being more open world, and have Cortana be the bad guy. I wouldn't mind that too much, provided the writing's good. You know, to try and sort of reel this back in a little bit. Brandon says, the Flood were from High Charity. Yeah, it was High Charity crashing onto the Ark, if I remember rightly. Or bits of it. And then they quarantine it. But yeah, Cortana's the bad guy. That's as simple as we've got to have Cortana as the bad guy. It's possible that the Flood will be in there. The ring that we've seen is destroyed, so there's got to be something that's caused that. I think, if I remember rightly, story-wise, because I've not been looking at Halo Infinite stuff, I think, aren't they back at the Halo 1 ring? I can't remember. It's either that or it's one of the other rings. Because we see one of the other rings in Halo 3 anyway, in the control room that's either like semi-infested or destroyed. I can't remember whether that's the ring from Halo 1 or not. Like I said, it's been a while for me in Halo. I've been kind of avoiding it since 5. Like, I used to be keeping up to date with Halo and all of its lore and everything, but I've not kept track of it since 5, so I'm out of I'm out of track here, so you guys will have to correct me on some of this stuff. John Palmer says, surely it was the Halo Wars 2 ring. I mean, the Halo Wars 2 ring wasn't destroyed, though, was it? Because it's a completely new ring that's made, if I remember rightly. Because we have the ring that Professor Anders was chilling on. That reminds me, they need to tie this all into Halo Wars 2 as well now. You know, because we have Professor Anders that's chilling out. We have this new ring that's been made. We have all the other rings, some of which are still active. I think, if I remember rightly, one of them in Halo 3's control room, like I said, looks like it was infested or whatever. Really weird. We know at least the one from Halo 1 has been destroyed. Can't remember whether Halo 2's ring is destroyed as well. I think if I remember rightly, it isn't. It's just fired, but that's what causes Halo 3's story, because it doesn't fire properly. As a result, it activates the control room on the Ark that can then be used to fire all the other Halos. Yeah, then the Ark's Halo ring is then made. If I remember rightly, that's not fully complete either, and then that results in that getting destroyed along with portions of the Ark. Let's have a look. Brandon says, no, the Ark housed a ring and used it to go to a ring that was destroyed. Huh. See, this gets all confusing now. I'm going to have to get back through stuff. Either way, like, these leaks, man. Like, I could go on about them for ages. Just, they sounded so cool. I want some more open world levels now. Everything that we saw from the tech demo of Infinite, because that's what it is. It's a tech demo for Infinite. We saw large open environments. We saw classic Marines. We saw the Chief in more classic looking armor in a classic styled Pelican. You know, it's like they're heavily going back on their art style from the previous Halos, primarily because everybody's been telling them for ages, like, look, we understand it's 343's taken over this now, but just dial your art style back because we don't like it. I'm hoping they'll go for a more classic look with a more modern style gameplay, but again, it's all up in the air until this event in July. Either way, what do you guys think about this? What do you think about these leaks? Like, I thought they were really cool. I really did. It had me going. I was like, yeah, if this is true, it's going to be really neat. I was actually really happy about it. It's like, it's a new take. You know, it's a new take, finally. We're going to get something different. Take some risks, you know. I think at this point they can't really lose with an open world game because they've tried everything else. I mean, they tried an open world game with ODST, and it did pretty well. Thing is, it's like, if I was Microsoft and I was saying I was learning from all my past mistakes and I looked like I was dialing back art style, this is me being very optimistic now, or at least very sort of hopeful or naive, I suppose you could say. If I was being Microsoft, I'd be incredibly careful with the franchise because I know a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people still play it and still buy the packs and stuff for Halo 5, you know, to get the different weapons and things in Warzone and stuff. It's fine. But the problem is we're not making as much money as we should. And a lot of reviewers have been upset with 5. Or rather, a lot of people have give 5 negative light. It's not played as much as the other Halo games. Kind of died after about a month or two on multiplayer. It didn't reach that MLG status that we wanted. Halo Wars 2 was it was okay received. We seem to have this problem where the marketing's good, we can get people hyped, and then we just fall flat with the gameplay or the story. I'd be really careful with it. I'd be like asking a lot of people like what was the safest way to do it so that when it launches we can at least have some money coming in on this new console, because we understand that the launch is going to be watched by a lot of people and it's going to live or die on, I mean, it's not gonna just live or die on this one game, but a lot of people are gonna be watching and expecting it because Chief is basically the face of Xbox as a brand, you know. John Brasser says, all I want is classic art style with a mix of bulky and sleek armor sets. I just hope they don't get some armor sets that look like aliens again, like off Halo 4. Heavy says, well, people have been speculating about his AI. Yeah, people have been saying it might be a clone of Cortana. Ultra says, see, the issue with Halo is that ODST was good, but you can't make that a larger scale game because the universe isn't set up to be like that. I don't know. Phantom Cavalry says, what was the leak? To give it a quick rundown, a open world Halo game that took bits from ODST. It took inspiration from games like Fallout or Skyrim, where you could go and do main quests, you could do side quests. It was a little bit open world exploring, and it had firefight, and there were elements of suppressed weapons coming back in to give it like a little bit of stealth. John Palmer says, watch right, it's Serena but rampant. I mean, didn't Serena delete herself? No, there wasn't any video. There wasn't any leak video. This is more just a video talking about the how cool the leaked stuff actually sounded. Correcting my my previous thing where I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be cool if it's like this. Just saying like, look, it's fake. And then going over how the franchise has been handled. John Palmer says, yeah, but 343 could make up some BS in a comic or something. No, if I remember rightly, Serena did delete herself properly. If you could join voice chat, I could debate why you can't do a full world Halo game. I'll have to do that some other time. Anyway, I'm going to Alt F4 this now. So yeah, thank you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.